Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Bucknuts Morning 5 on Friday, February 6, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I am happy to be joined by Bucknuts contributor Jonah Booker, his debut on the show. Long overdue, J-Book. It's great to have you on the show, my man.
Glad to be here.
The big news yesterday, of course, Stan Drayton taking the job with the Chicago Bears after 4 years at Ohio State, first year as wide receivers coach. I think people forget Jim Tressel actually hired Stan Drayton. Never got to work together. He worked with Luke Fickell for that one fateful season, and Urban Meyer took over. So he's been at Ohio State for the last 4 years, including the last 3 under Urban Meyer's running backs coach. And he took the job at the Chicago Bears. And, of course, this makes Ohio State look bad on the surface because it went down to the wire with Michael Weber, of course, the 4-star running back from Detroit Cass Tech, and looked like he was going to flip to Michigan, but he stuck with the Buckeyes, and Stan Drayton seemed to be a big reason why. So I know it doesn't look good for Ohio State, J-Book, but your initial thoughts about this situation?
When the news first broke, to me the first thing was, this is not going to sit, well with, college football nation. But as you dig into further details, you kind of look at it from all angles of the perspective. First you always want to wish, Stan Drayton the best of luck, considering everything he's done for the program. You hate to lose the Big Ten Recruiter of the Year the day after National Signing Day. He has to do what's best for him and his family. But in this situation, what is he supposed to do? He's looking for potential, but at the same time, it's not a guarantee, and he has to still fulfill his obligations with Ohio State in recruiting, Mike Weber and the remaining targets that he was in on.
Exactly, and Bill Kurelic had some information last night in his column. We're going to have much more today in the boarding house, take you behind the curtain. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we know, and what I can share right now is that Ohio State's coaching staff, Urban Meyer, they did not know Stan Drayton was going to be leaving. They knew there were some feelers out there. They don't necessarily think there were any job offers, but they knew that he was being looked at, put it that way. And but they didn't know that he was going to leave. They certainly didn't know it was going to be the day after signing day. There was no deal in place. He had the interview yesterday. He took the job yesterday. And I admit, when I first heard it, I thought, oh, come on, he probably accepted the job a week ago. Well, from everything I'm hearing from excellent sources, that is not the case. Yes, they had talks. It wasn't like they just started talking yesterday. We all know that the Bears and Drayton, at least through back channels, had previous discussions. But as far as an actual formal interview, as far as the job actually being offered to him, that did not come down until yesterday. And I think that makes this look a hell of a lot less shady for Ohio State, in my opinion, J-Book.
Yeah, if you look at it, from, 1,000 feet above, what is Stan supposed to do? If he doesn't get the job, then all of a sudden he has to deal with the repercussions of now you lose Mike Weber to your rival. Well, at the same time, you also have to respect, the Bears' wishes, because you don't know who the Bears are actually interviewing. There could be other potential candidates out there. But at the end of the day, you look at the situation. Was the timing bad? Yes, but you have to trust in Urban Meyer that he's going to be able to go ahead and mend those fences with Mike Weber as well as the Cass Tech community.
Kareem Walker, we're just spitballing here. How much do you think this will affect him? I have to think it'll affect him a little bit because he did say Stan Drayton was a big reason that he picked Ohio State. But at the same time, you look what Ezekiel Elliott has done and what Carlos Hyde did the previous year and Urban Meyer's offense in general. Hopefully Kareem Walker just keeps those things in mind. But being a realist, though, this is going to affect his recruitment a little bit, I would have to think, J-Book.
I would think it will affect his recruitment, but you have to go back to what Urban Meyer said yesterday. Before they was constantly preaching a vision, a dream. Now you have something tangible to show to these kids, which is a potential Heisman candidate in Ezekiel Elliott, who will probably be one of the first backs taken off the board once he declares for the NFL. You have a guy in Carlos Hyde who second-round pick with the 49ers, both of those guys rushing over, 1,500 yards. There's a system in place at Ohio State right now that is very back-friendly. Yes, it may be a little small setback with Kareem Walker today, but keep in mind we're a year away from actual national signing day, so whoever that future running back coach is, he'll be able to come in and build a relationship with Walker. But I continue to go back to what Ohio State is doing systematically, where they're churning out running backs. You look at the offensive line haul that these guys are bringing in the last couple of years. Who wouldn't want to run behind that hogwash of guys up front?
I know the next question people are going to ask, well, who's going to replace Stan Drayton? Well, in my experience with these situations, it's usually somebody nobody is expecting. Now, Tim Beck was a name that some people threw out there, so that was a little bit of an exception. But let's think back to when Tom Herman was hired. Nobody even brought up the name Tom Herman as a possibility. So it could be somebody that nobody's even thinking about right now. But I'm going to throw a couple names out there. First of all, let's do process of elimination first. I've heard people mention Tim Spencer and Eddie George. I don't think either one of those guys are candidates, and you can feel free to disagree with me on this. I'm going to explain why. First of all, Tim Spencer's in the NFL. I think he's very happy there. He was a guy that did not like the recruiting aspect of being a college football coach. He loved coaching. He was a hell of a player at Ohio State. His son was obviously a heck of a player in his own right, a gritty player, a leader. But I don't think Tim Spencer wants any part of coming back to college, dealing with recruiting. That was one of the reasons that Jim Tressel was okay to part ways with him about a decade ago. And Eddie George is the other one. Eddie George is not going to come and be a college coach. He is living in the lap of luxury. He doesn't want to come and work these long hours, and why would he? So I don't think those guys are legitimate candidates. Before I move on, do you agree or disagree?
Agree on both fronts.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of Buckeye fans bring that up. I just want to put that to right. I don't think this is just opinion. I don't think there's any chance that those guys are going to be the next running back. One of those guys is going to be the next running backs coach. No, there's a chance Tim Hinton could move to running back coach, and Vince Morrow from Kentucky could be hired. That's a possibility. What do you think about that, Jay Book?
I think Vince would be a guy that you would definitely have to, take a look at. The guy's an excellent recruiter, the ace recruiter at Kentucky. Jim Harbaugh wanted to hire him up to Michigan. He ended up declining. You're bringing in a guy who is recruiting Ohio. I don't know how much you actually need a guy to recruit Ohio, but, with his savvy techniques as a recruiter, I feel like you can put Vince anywhere in the nation and he'll flourish. Tim Hinton moving to running back is an option, but keep in mind the coaches' conventions are coming up here pretty soon, around the same time that Urban Meyer was able to go ahead and snag Larry Johnson around this time last year when Vrabel left. So you're going to get a lot of guys who's going to be campaigning, sending out fillers with their agents to Urban Meyer to see, if they can get a bite there. You're talking about a national championship caliber team who's consistently elevating coaches to the next level under Urban Meyer. So there's going to be a lot of interest out there. But for me, I think the main focus with Urban is going to be can the guy recruit and what's his ties. He may look for somebody to just replace Ohio and recruit Cleveland, which would be a strong point for Vince Morrow.
The other name I want to throw out there, Notre Dame running backs coach Tony Alford. He could be a guy that could be a candidate. I don't know if he'd be interested in making a lateral move. We don't think it's a lateral move. We think if you go from Notre Dame running backs coach to Ohio State, it's a small step up, but we'll see about that. That's another name I think will be floated out there is Tony Alford from Notre Dame. Do you have any experience with him? Do you know him at all, Jay Book?
Not much, but if you look at, the running backs that Notre Dame's have, they've been, pretty solid as far as, what they're able to bring to the table in that scheme. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, I feel like the Ohio State scheme right now is, as far as the X's and O's, is so dynamic that you can plug a guy in there if he's halfway decent and you're still going to churn out 1,000-yard backs. I mean, as long as you have Ed Warner there pairing with Urban Meyer, you're talking about this power spread scheme that, teams like Alabama, Oregon, we had in the boarding house that you're going to be having teams from all across the country coming to Ohio State just to study what they're actually doing. So whoever Urban gets, first and foremost, needs to be able to recruit. And secondly, as far as the production from the running backs, I'm not expecting any type of drop-off there. In fact, if Urban can knock this one out of the park like he's shown he's been able to do many a times, you could see an even more elevated play from the running backs.
Great stuff on your debut on here on the show. He is Jonah Booker. We call him Jay Book. Great stuff, my man.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
And for the listeners out there, again, we'll have much more on the Stan Drayton situation in the boarding house today, and we'll have full coverage on whatever else is going on with the team. We'll have recruiting coverage, so keep it locked to the site. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks again to Jay Book. Thanks again to all the listeners out there. Take it away, best damn band in the land.